When I decided to live in Vietnam and I told family and friends, a big reaction was, "Are you crazy? Did you lose your mind?" I know guys who they know I go back to Vietnam and they'll right out clearly say, "I will never go back. I have been to hell once and I'm not going to hell again." I never had a sense of intrigue to go back other than when my friends and I started to get a diagnosis of cancer that was specifically related to Agent Orange.
If I were living in the U.S. before I got an increase in my disability, I would have been on the streets, just like many of the veterans are.
Having somebody who would do my laundry and all of that together, including the price of the food and the price of living here, was way less than half. It was probably 1/3 of what I was looking at paying in the United States in order to retire there.
I try not to deal with the VA at all, or the U.S. government for that matter. I'm an escapee. When I came back here, I was expecting people to hate me, throw shit at me, do ugly things to me, say terrible things, you dirty Americans, all this stuff. But it was just the opposite. I couldn't believe what happened to me here.
I feel safer here than I've ever felt in my life anywhere else. I was 17 years old when I went in. I was boots on the ground. I've seen my share of combat. Every day. We got hit with mortars, we got hit with artillery. One of my men that was walking behind me one time, he didn't make it. That could have been me. I remember holding one of my Marines, trying to cover up his wounds so he wouldn't go and be shot. I came here in 2019 specifically for closure. I wanted to see Vietnam. I had no idea that I would wind up staying here. This is what I needed right here. I found everything I need right here.
So I was in Vietnam in 1971 and 1972. When I went to Vietnam, I saw my role now as being able to participate in helping Americans get out of the war. I worked in units that closed military bases and sent guys home. It took about a year for me to really figure things out and say, I want to go to Vietnam to learn more about this and have relationships with those people who were also affected and bring attention to the situation. I could be a voice for them, help each other in a reformation and reconciliation. Year after year, I would just go back for 3 months, go back to New York for 3 or 4 months, to go back to Da Nang for 3 or 4 months. In 2019, I decided that this was ridiculous and I would permanently stay as much as I could in Vietnam.
What is it like going from one of the most expensive cities in the world to one of the cheapest cities in the world?
I mean, if I lived in New York, the amount of money I would spend in rent alone, I would have no money left for food, cell phone, TV, Wi-Fi, internet. I can go out and I can spend maybe $5, $6, $7 on a meal with beverages.
Once I got here, it provided exactly what I needed, which was I could now have a housekeeper, I could have a cook or somebody to help shop for my things. So that was really the key reason that got me to leave the United States, was the ability to get domestic help. Domestic help I could afford. I was a staff sergeant in the healthcare field in the Army. I was in the artillery unit that fired the final U.S. artillery round in Vietnam, out of Da Nang here. Never ever had a thought about coming back here until I was living on my VA benefits. I'm rated 100% for PTSD from the war. PTSD as an anxiety disorder affects people in a lot more ways than they might think, and one of the ways is the inability to concentrate. I was living alone in the outskirts of Nashville, and when I found myself making errors in my insulin, errors in my medications, and I was totally sober, and I also saw the way my house was starting to fall apart. You know, the dishes piling up, my own personal hygiene, and my own sleep cycle. I needed support. I'm from San Diego. It's virtually impossible for me to go back to San Diego and retire.
I started out when I had my house, my last house, I was paying maybe $800 a month, if I remember correctly. When I left there, I was paying almost $6,000. The wages have increased with all this inflation. As far as Vietnam goes, I mean, I love it here. There's so much to do here. So you meet so many different people from all over the world.
Vietnam is more humane than America. And when I was coming back here in 2002, 2003, 2004, I realized that Vietnam was for people and the United States was for money. If I were in America, I'd be in a nursing home. I had a stroke and a heart attack. There was a time when I couldn't go to the toilet. In Vietnam, I'm part of a Vietnamese family that take care of their elders. In America, your family's too busy to take care of you, you know? That's the culture. You know, I've been to many houses where an old person was dying on a mat, and the family was taking care of them. They were feeding them and changing their diaper and taking care of them till their last breath. And then there would be the funeral would be in the house. So you'd go from the bed into a box, and then you get buried. People truly love each other. And in America, they're just acquaintances, even family. It's crazy, but that's the way it is.
Is it weird to live in the place where you used to fight in a war?
It's totally weird. When I was here during the war, I didn't have anything to do with Vietnamese people. I didn't know them. I didn't interact with them. I was a Marine on a Marine Corps air station. I was loading weapons on aircraft. And the squadron I was assigned to was at Chu Lai, just down the road here, about 70 kilometers. You never knew when the shit you were working on was going to blow up. So we were living in constant, kind of like an underlying anxiety, whether we were going to kill ourselves on the job, whether the Viet Cong were going to kill us with a rocket attack, or whether we were going to have a ground attack. We were scared. The Marine Corps is like it's a warrior culture that's nobody knows anything about. And they make you a warrior in boot camp. You do all this crazy shit physically, and you know, you don't realize it, but you're being indoctrinated into this hyper male apex society where your survival relies on you being a killer, basically. And you know, when you spend 4 years in that environment and then you go back into civilian world, I mean, your head is like, you know, you're really screwed up. So it takes a long time to come down from that.
I think about that quite often. Why would I go to a place that would potentially trigger PTSD? But it's not coming back to the place. It doesn't make a difference where I am. For example, In Vietnam, in Da Nang, I very rarely see a helicopter, but in New York, I do see helicopters quite often. Those are triggering. There's a lot of sounds of war that are not there anymore. Aircraft bombers that were flying in and out of Da Nang. And then you had rocket attacks. Da Nang was also known as Rocket City. Now you hear the sounds of, the hustle and bustle of motorbikes. You hear the sounds of people singing, at karaoke at parties in their houses at night. So it's a whole different sound. The sound called the sounds of peace, sounds of joy.